And what got it? I mean, what got it started? I mean, in a nutshell, I know that we're kind of toward the end here, but like, what was the thing that kicked that off?
Seattle Hempfest?
Yes.
Well, we had this thing going on, which still goes on since the early '80s, called the Seattle Peace Concerts, and that's a concert series of free shows that would happen in various parks throughout the summer in Seattle that would move from park to park. And I was on the board of the Peace Concerts back in 1990. And the Persian Gulf War was starting. The first President Bush and the first Iraq War, the invasion of Kuwait, was coalescing. And we had a peace concert down at Gasworks Park in Seattle, a former oil refinery. So it was very apropos. And the short story is this idea kind of circulated that we should stay in the park and have a peace vigil, a peace camp, a protest, occupy the park and demand that America gets out of Kuwait. And so 100 people spent the night that night under this huge double-ended Bedouin rainbow tent from the Rainbow Gathering that somebody brought down and erected illegally in the park. And the next day, the Parks Department came down and threatened to rip the tent down. And so we all moved under this huge, gigantic covered structure that was the former gas facility works, that had picnic tables and sinks and fire pits in it and stuff. And so we had about 100 people in there. We were there for 6 months, actually, with this peace camp, this occupation of the park. They couldn't get rid of us. And we had big rallies and big teach-ins and stuff. And somebody organized a startup meeting for a Washington State chapter of Normal at what we called Peaceworks Park. We renamed it for our vigil. And about 40 of us showed up for this meeting. But the guy that was promoting it never showed up. He was a no-show. And it was really a kind of anticlimactic. And so my colleague, Gary Cook, said, we should do something. We have to do something. Let's hold a Hempfest. And everybody's like, a Hempfest? What's that? And that's kind of how the idea was born. And the first one was at Volunteer Park in 1991. We had about 500 people, and I was the MC. And I remember going, man, it was huge. There was 500 people, and we were so excited. And we thought that was a massive turnout. And the very beginning, we got to the park about 7 a.m. to put up the PA. There's a little amphitheater already there. And we were very concerned by all the homeless people that were sleeping in the park. There was just so many of them. And as people woke up, we found out they weren't homeless at all. They had come from other communities, and even some people came from another state. And that's when we kind of realized, wow, there's a real need. There's a lot of support for something like this. And of course, Jack Harrer, we brought Jack up the very first year, and he spoke at every Seattle Hempfest until he died, except the year that he had his stroke in 2010.
Very cool, man. I mean,
that is awesome.
I didn't know any of that, and I feel enlightened. I really appreciate that encapsulation. I'm glad we got to that before it was all over. And I would love to make it out to one of those, man. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. We're trying to hang in here, man. It's been rough. The last year and a half has economically been devastating for us. And we just lost our store and offices. We had a hemp boutique and offices in Lake City here outside of Seattle. And we lost that about 3 months ago. It was closed for 6 months due to COVID restrictions. It's been tough, but it's not just us. It's tough on everybody.
Well, certainly. Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, go ahead, Rick. Sorry.
I was just going to say best wishes for the fest. Certainly, there are very few things in America that have been positive examples of cannabis use that really showcase the users of cannabis, not the businesses of cannabis. I can think of, the Boston Freedom Rally, obviously Hash Bash, Seattle Hempfest, in Wisconsin. There's a big thing in Madison. And that's about it. There's very few. So thanks so much for all your decades of work making sure that people had a positive image of cannabis in America.
Thank you. And I know time's running out. I just want to add that a lot of people say, well, is Hempfest even necessary anymore because isn't it going to be legal? And we think that there's Oktoberfest in Germany, where 1 million people celebrate beer culture, and beer's never been illegal. So we think that events like Hempfest should happen as cultural celebrations long after legalization.
Perfect.
Amen.
I love it.
Yeah.